This is Marketing Jam, a podcast featuring the brightest minds in Canadian marketing.
Hey there, welcome back to Marketing Jam. I'm Shaheed, and this is Jana Dybinski of Rebel.com. You're the VP of Marketing and Culture, which is really important. Why don't we start off by telling us what Rebel.com is?
Sure. So Rebel.com is a domain name registrar and hosting company. We're Ottawa-based. We have a full range of hosting services from little clustered packages, WordPress, right through to VPS hosting and domain names and site building tools.
Yeah, so I don't want to throw competitors' names out there, but a lot like GoDaddy.
Like something like NoDaddy.
NoDaddy and Site something. And anyway,
Smearspace.
That's the idea,
rhymes
right?
With Smearspace. Yeah.
Smearspace, I like that one.
Yeah.
So you guys, I assume, doing well in your business, but it's a business with a lot of competitors. So, how important is marketing in that to make sure that you're able to survive? A lot of pressure on your role.
Yeah, it's huge. It's actually a really interesting industry because it is very, very busy. Tons and tons of competition. The competition's not always direct, so you've got people who focus on hosting or people who focus on domains or people like us who've got it all. It's a mature business.
Yeah.
We have some competitors with very, very large budgets.
Oh, I bet.
Competitors that spend more, on SEM alone in one day than I spend all year.
Yeah.
And we actually all have the exact same inventory. So you can't differentiate too much on price or product.
Yeah.
So there's
sounds quite unique. Are there any comparable industries that you could name that function the same way, you think?
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe in the manufacturing world or some retail environments, but if you want a particular domain name, it's available at all of us, or it's not available at all of us, right? But we all kind of draw from the same inventory.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so how do you survive then in a competitive industry with the same inventory and bringing it back to marketing? What makes you guys successful in what you do?
For Rebel, culture.
Okay.
Which is probably not a very common marketing answer.
Right.
But we started out with what I think can only be described as a shitty culture.
Yeah.
And spent about the last 3 years really, really working on employee engagement, on feedback, and on developing a culture that really, really celebrates and kind of nurtures contribution and safety around giving feedback. And that has led to so much change in accountability and in excitement in everybody who's part of our product experience. So it's not just the marketing team, it's the people who are running our customer support who are really, really committed to giving absolutely fantastic service, and our development product team who are really, really committed to delivering on innovative products. And so that has made marketing so much easier because it really powers reduced churn. We're a subscription-based business. So much lower churn, higher retention, customers, much more referral power. We've got a lot of incoming PR opportunities, a lot of incoming partnership opportunities.
Yeah, and if you think of a software like email marketing, which is very similar in that there are a lot of competitors, the distinguishing factors a lot of the time are things like support, right? But that comes from culture, like you were talking about. And, what made it, I guess, a shitty culture, and and in terms of changing that, how important are values, and what are the values that you guys live by?
Huge. It was a shitty culture for all the obvious reasons. Cultures are shitty. It was siloed communication and negativity, and people were bonding over negative experiences versus positive ones.
Typical stuff.
Yeah. But the value question's a really important question. I'm glad you asked that. We did a survey early on in our kind of culture transformation where we actually surveyed our staff on 6 principles. It was things like leadership, vision, accountability, communication, to try to get a baseline and to try to figure out really just where to start, because we were a bit overwhelmed as a small leadership team. And vision was the lowest rated thing, in that it was the thing we had to spend the most time on. And we spent a lot of time helping people understand what we were there to do, which in Rebel's case was not about just selling web domains or web hosting. It was about helping people get online. You know, we were standing in that space between somebody's idea and that idea being actualized in a digital environment, which is a really cool space to stand in. And so it became a real mission for us just to help people contribute online, and that was a huge catalyst for the change, absolutely.
So in terms of contributing online, I mean, a website has a specific spot in space. Has that in your mind, I mean, probably yes, but has that changed, that space and the need for a website changed over time with the advent and uptake of social media, and how do you combat that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Websites used to be something that were hard to do. There was so much planning, it was so much work, there was even an expense to it, that all those barriers have been removed, and we actually see people take on more disposable websites, websites just for campaigns.
Me, for sure. Yeah.
Right? Domain names when they're drunk at the bar, right?
Exactly.
Like every
or
idea.
At a conference.
Like every idea suddenly, it's so easy to secure that space, throw up a landing page. And so it's interesting, the industry is fluctuating quite a lot, where we find that people don't actually just want one domain now, they want 5, and they don't keep them all at the same time. There's just this kind of rotating thing of ideas. And
So you talked a little bit about PR. How much of a role does that play in what you do? I mean, there might be somebody else who takes care of PR, right? But how important is that in sort of shaping the story of what you do and differentiating yourselves from your competitors?
I think it's important. I think that it's a part of my role in that I used to just be the VP of marketing, and now culture is actually part of my title,
right.
and big part of what I do and what I focus on from a strategy perspective. And people love stories. I think that we've seen the very obvious trends of consumers wanting to know the people behind their brands, wanting that kind of transparency and openness, and they want a story, and they want to support not just companies that they feel are good, but people behind companies that they feel are good. And I think that PR continues to be a really great way to tell that story, not through ads or whatever else you're doing, but really in a much more kind of authentic, human way.
Yeah. So how are you guys doing that? And more specifically, what is your story? What are the talking points that sell Rebel.com?
We have, in shifting a shitty culture, I think as a leadership team, we've portrayed a very healthy dose of humility and of candor. And again, I think the PR story and the story of Rebel is just about leading humans, that business at the end of the day is just about the people behind it. Your work culture, your boss, your environment, it's all about the people behind it. And that has been the PR story. Our CEO has become the Fellow for Culture and Engagement named by Startup Canada.
Oh, wow.
And he does a lot of podcasts and talks a lot about how to shift culture and the value of feedback and the value of creating environments where feedback is safe, even if it's negative, and creating many, many ways for employees, just like we do with customers, to give us the feedback and then to act on that as leaders. And I think that candor and that just openness and integrity has been the story.
Yeah, I mean, that really speaks to taking what can be a weakness, turning it into a strength as a business, right?
Yeah, we're candid about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. So in terms of domains and websites, so I just had kids, twin boys. They're,
congrats.
Thank you, 15 months old as we record this podcast. And I wonder what your opinion is on whether I should buy up their domain names right now, because inventory, their names are not very, common, but at the same time, is that a thing? Is that something that inventory is kind of going by the wayside, and that if you want something, you better get it now?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell everybody in the comm NCA space, if they don't have their name, they should get it. It's like $12 a year.
Yeah.
And you may as well own that, even if all you do is point it to your LinkedIn or point it to your social channels or whatever. I think people should absolutely claim that space. And as an employer, when I'm looking to hire people, it's one of the first things I do is go to their their name in a domain space. So should you get it for your kids? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's a small investment. It might be
Yeah.
early, but there's a lot of shifts happening in our industry. I think that we're going to see domain names as a whole shift a lot, and there's some people who are already kind of predicting the end of domain names. They'll run their course, of course, as innovation does different things with it, but the internet is always going to run on addresses, and we have a small view of an entire world that's still coming online, so I don't think they're going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, platforms probably play a huge role in that, right? And
Yeah.
that people are spending a lot of their times and their content there, but there still needs to be a home base somewhere, and as platforms disappear, as they will and as they do, you find the importance of the website once again.
Yeah, and it was only 2 years ago now that ICANN assigned hundreds of new domain extensions because we were starting to run out of space. So, I mean, you don't need to get the CA or the comma of your kid's name. You can get the .pizza.
Yeah.
If you want,
Guru, right? That's a good one.
Yeah, there's tons of options.
A lot of the talk around domains, back in the day is relative, but around .cas and .nets and .orgs, those were not seen as okay. That if you're not an organization, you should not have a .org, and if you're not Canadian, you should not have a .ca, and that's probably still true. But how much have the waters muddied in terms of extensions, and does it really matter at this point?
It doesn't matter. It's interesting. There's a lot of stats, specifically in trust. So .ca, CIRA, the registry behind .ca, does a lot of consumer research, and they have collected an incredible amount of data that says that Canadians prefer .ca. For instance, it's more trusted. You're dealing with a Canadian business. You actually have to be Canadian or a Canadian business to get one.
Yeah.
And when we step outside of our North American kind of view of domains and you go into Europe, those CCTLDs, so the country extensions, are highly prevalently used.
Yeah.
You really see them everywhere. So there's trust. There's trust in those different things, and a lot of them still have requirements that do add value and trust to it, and that if you're seeing that extension, that person met some qualifications to have that.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it makes sense. I mean, we're at a conference, CIMC, and the website is CIMC.marketing.
Marketing,
which
yeah.
makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
So why not? We work in the business of digital marketing, and so SEO is something that we do a lot. I'm curious to hear your stance on, if somebody's thinking of starting a business and they want a domain name, they're Canadian, and the .ca is available, the .com is not, but it's not really in use. Should they be worried about things like that, where that name is already taken, but if you're Canadian, the .ca is available? Would you recommend kind of going with that, even it might mess up with your SEO? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't worry about SEO. I'd worry about your customer base more.
Okay.
So if your customers are Canadian, if you intend on continuing to primarily target Canadian customers, then CA is a strong domain space. If you plan on going outside of Canada, you probably want to explore either buying that .com from whoever has it, which is something that, Rebel has brokerage services you can do. You can try to get it, or going with one of the new ones. And the SEO is interesting though on the new ones. So timestamp this, because we're in April 2018, and who knows how quick this will change. But at the moment, Google's search algorithms is treating those domain extensions as keywords.
Okay.
So if your name is, John's Cheesy .pizza, you actually get the same benefits as if it was johnscheesypizza.com.
Okay.
So there are some SEO wins at this exact moment in time. I mean, it's Google's decision really ultimately if that continues to be the case.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, anything else in terms of marketing, in terms of your story, in terms of PR and culture specifically that we're talking about, that you could share with small business operators who are doing their own marketing and who need to rely on sort of themselves and their story to get their name out there? What are a couple tips that you could share that have worked for you guys?
We live in the most transparent time. We have ever seen, and that transparency is only going to grow. And you can no longer get away with being non-customer centric. You can't get away with treating your staff or your customers in a way that all of your other prospective customers, don't want. And I think that culture is so important because your employees are your biggest brand ambassadors, and they are the ones with the power to create referral opportunities and everything else that helps, especially small businesses grow. So, my advice would be have a culture budget, have a culture strategy, have a culture strategic goal and intention as you're building out plans. It's a really big deal.
Does that relate to the hard sell as well, in that, transparency is one thing, and if you push too far, then it doesn't feel natural, doesn't feel organic, has that always been the case? Is that nothing new in your mind?
I think it's always been the case. It's just so easy to find now.
Yeah.
It just takes one search.
Yeah.
It takes the word review being put after a search, and we're seeing, as marketers, we're seeing all of these trends where somebody comes and they look at your product offer, and before they buy, the first thing they do is open up another tab and search your name and your product in reviews. Yeah. And it used to be that those reviews had to be sort of vetted by people that we would see as influencers or thought leaders, and now data shows us that those reviews are equally and maybe even more powerful if it's coming from your peers. And so there's just so much pressure. Frankly, I don't think you're going to make it if you can't naturally and organically create those reviews to be good, and it's going to happen by your staff's experience and how they pass that on.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Rebel.com is the name of the company and the website, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
It's easy.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.